The unseen threat. The galaxy was vast, endless, and teeming with life. For centuries, humans had explored its farthest corners, making allies and enemies along the way. But there were things in the dark corners of the universe, things humans couldn't even begin to understand. No one had ever imagined that one of these ancient forces would suddenly turn its eyes toward Earth. No one had ever imagined how one lone human would become the only hope of stopping them. On a quiet night at the Human Defense Command Center, located in Earth's orbit, a small crew sat monitoring the usual communications. It was a typical shift for Commander Sarah Westbrook and her team. Little did they know that this night would change everything. It started as a faint signal, a strange transmission that seemed to come from the edge of the galaxy. At first, the technicians didn't think much of it. The galaxy was full of random space debris, old messages, and even some alien broadcasts. But something about this transmission caught their attention. It wasn't like the usual noise. There was something urgent in it, something they couldn't ignore. "Commander, you need to see this," one of the technicians said, his voice shaky. "We've isolated a signal, but it's coming from a source we can't trace. It's from somewhere far beyond any known system." Commander Westbrook stood from her station and moved toward the technician's desk. She peered at the screen, frowning. The signal was erratic, but it was there. She noticed something even more disturbing. The signal seemed to be coming from the heart of what should have been empty space, a place known to be occupied by an alien armada. "Can you trace it? Is it just a distortion?" she asked. "No, ma'am," the technician replied, his face growing pale. "It's real. This is coming from a human. At least it looks like it. But the thing is, this is a distress signal." Commander Westbrook's heart sank. A distress signal? From who? The technician hesitated. "It says it's from a single human ship. But Commander, it's not just any ship. This message is coded in a way we've never seen before. It's coming from somewhere within the reach of the Zorath Armada." The words hit Westbrook like a ton of bricks. The Zorath had been the galaxy's most feared enemies for centuries. Their ships were vast, their technology advanced beyond anything humanity had ever developed, and they had been silent for years. Everyone assumed they had retreated into the far reaches of the galaxy. No one had expected them to resurface. "Can you replay the message?" she asked, trying to mask the growing tension in her voice. The technician quickly tapped a few keys, and the room filled with static before a human voice emerged. It was distorted at first, but slowly, the words became clearer. "This is Commander Elias. We are under attack. The Zorath are here. They've come with an entire fleet, and I'm the only one left. I can't hold them off for much longer, but I can't just run away. The galaxy can't survive another war. I need help. Someone, anyone, help me." The message cut off abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in the room. Commander Westbrook looked around at her team, her mind racing. The Zorath, a fleet, and a single human in the midst of it all. She turned back to the technician. "Where is this coming from? Can you pinpoint the exact location?" The technician's fingers flew across the control panel as he ran the calculations. It's coming from the Epsilon 9 system, Commander. It's just past the neutral zone, near the Zorath Empire's last known border." Commander Westbrook felt her pulse quicken. The neutral zone was supposed to be a no-man's land, an area where no one dared to venture. But now, a human ship was stranded in the middle of it, facing off against an entire armada. "Is the fleet heading there?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with urgency. The technician nodded. "They'll be there in a few hours, Commander, but we need to be prepared. If the Zorath are involved, it won't be just one ship. It'll be a full-scale invasion." Westbrook's thoughts raced. She had never known of any human ships venturing that far into Zorath territory, and certainly not without their fleet backing them up. The only explanation was that Commander Elias had done something extraordinary, something that had caught the attention of the galaxy's most powerful enemies. But what? She stood up straighter, her face hardening with resolve. Get our fleet mobilized. We'll need backup. And send a team to intercept that signal. If there's a human in danger out there, we'll bring them home. Now, as the crew scrambled to follow orders, the weight of the situation began to sink in. The Zorath Armada was the galaxy's deadliest force, and they hadn't shown their face in years. Yet here they were, back with a vengeance. And the only person standing between them and the rest of the galaxy was a single human, Commander Elias. Westrook couldn't shake the growing unease. The fact that Elias had reached out meant something important. He had survived for this long, facing down an impossible enemy. But how? What made this lone human different from the others? As the first signs of the alien fleet began to appear on the edge of the galaxy's sensors, Commander Westbrook knew one thing for sure. Whatever was about to unfold would change the galaxy forever. And one human, just one, would be at the center of it all. The unexpected warrior. The silence after Commander Westbrook issued her orders seemed deafening. The team at the Human Defense Command Center scrambled into action, their hands moving quickly, sending out transmissions, and preparing the fleet for a potential battle. But Westbrook couldn't shake the unsettling feeling gnawing at her gut. A single human, Commander Elias, was out there, fighting an entire alien armada. How could that be? How could one person possibly stand a chance? The transmission from Elias had stopped abruptly, and the lack of any follow-up communications made the situation all the more mysterious. The team had tracked the signal to a region known as the Epsilon 9 system, a cold, desolate part of the galaxy that bordered the Zorath Empire. If Elias was truly there, he was alone, surrounded by the might of the Zorath warships. They were ruthless, efficient, and absolutely merciless. No one had survived an encounter with them. Yet there was something strange about the entire situation. Why had the signal stopped? Why hadn't Elias continued to plead for help? Had something happened to him? Or worse, had he gone silent because he was about to do something no one could predict? Commander, we've pinpointed the exact location of the human ship, a technician called out, breaking the silence. Westbrook rushed over to his station, her heart beating faster as she saw the coordinates flash on the screen. Elias wasn't just near the Zorath fleet. He was directly in their path, alone. How was that even possible? Any sign of the Zorath ships? Westbrook asked, her voice calm but filled with urgency. The technician scanned the data. Yes, Mom. The fleet is moving toward Epsilon 9. There are at least a dozen capital ships, plus hundreds of smaller warships. They're preparing for something big. Westbrook's mind raced. A dozen capital ships. That was overwhelming. The human fleet was powerful, but there was no way they could take on such a force directly. They would need a miracle. We'll need to hold them off until we can get to Elias, she said, thinking quickly. Prepare a defensive perimeter at Epsilon 8. We can't let them get any closer. Just as she turned to leave, another technician spoke up. Ma'am, there's something you need to see. Westbrook stopped and turned back. The technician looked even more anxious than before, which only added to her unease. He pointed at the screen, where a fresh set of data was popping up. It's the human ship, he said. It's moving. And it's not just drifting, it's engaging the enemy. Westbrook's eyes widened. Engaging. But how could one human ship take on that many? The screen flickered for a moment as the signal from Elias's ship came through. The image was hazy, but it was clear that the ship was in motion, weaving through the enemy armada with a surprising agility. What was even more astonishing was that several Zorath ships had already been disabled. And not just any ships. These were the most advanced vessels in their fleet. One by one, the alien ships began to malfunction, their systems shutting down as if they were under attack from an unseen force. It wasn't just that the human ship was dodging their weapons. It was as if the very fabric of the Zorath ship's systems was being torn apart from the inside. The Zorith had never seen anything like it. "How is this possible?" one of the technicians whispered. Westrook's brow furrowed. "That's no ordinary human ship." She wasn't just watching a battle unfold on the screen. She was witnessing something far more complex, something that no one could have predicted. The human ship was somehow using advanced technology to disrupt the Zorith fleet. It was as if the ship itself was a weapon, one with powers that could challenge the very might of the Zorith Empire. There was no way that Elias's ship could have that kind of technology. Humanity didn't possess anything like it, and yet it was happening. How could one man with a single ship be causing so much chaos among the most powerful alien fleet in the galaxy? Westrook was torn. She knew that Elias was a highly skilled commander, but there was something else here. This wasn't just luck or clever tactics. There was something hidden beneath the surface, something extraordinary. Elias had somehow turned the tables on the Zorith. And now, they were the ones scrambling to keep up. "We need to get to him," Westrook said, her voice filled with determination. Now, the orders were passed down, and the human fleet moved quickly toward the Epsilon 9 system. As they neared the area, Westrook couldn't help but wonder what was waiting for them on the other side. Elias had already begun a battle that no one expected, and now it was up to the rest of humanity to ensure he didn't have to fight alone. But deep down, Westrook couldn't shake the question that lingered in her mind. How had Elias done it? How had one human, with no backup, managed to take on an entire armada of alien warships? The truth was out there, hidden somewhere within the chaos of this battle. But until they reached Elias, no one would know the full story. As the human fleet closed in on the Epsilon 9 system, the tension in the command center was palpable. They were about to face the Zorith, the deadliest force in the galaxy, and there was still no clear answer to how one human had already managed to stop them in their tracks. The galaxy was watching, and the stakes had never been higher. The hidden power. The tension was unbearable. Commander Westrook and her fleet approached the Epsilon 9 system at full speed, knowing that Elias was out there, alone, surrounded by the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever seen. And yet, despite being completely outnumbered, Elias had managed to cripple several Zorith warships without breaking a sweat. It was baffling. It was unimaginable. And the more Westrook tried to make sense of it, the more she felt the creeping suspicion that something more was at play here, something far beyond human technology or strategy. As the human fleet entered the system, the view on the screens became more chaotic. Zorith ships were still in disarray, floating aimlessly through space, their systems sparking with power failures. The Zorith commanders were scrambling, trying to re-establish control, but it was clear that they were losing the fight. One by one, their warships were succumbing to something unknown, something that seemed to be eating away at their very core. "Commander, we're in position," a voice crackled through the communications channel. "We've located Elias's ship. He's in the heart of the enemy fleet, and he's still fighting." Westrook's heart raced. "Send in the reinforcements. We need to ensure the Zorith don't regroup." The fleet began to position itself around the Zorith forces, aiming to cut off any possibility of escape. But just as Westrook was about to issue another command, the screens in front of her flickered again. A new transmission came through, but this time, it was from Elias himself. The image was distorted at first, but Westrook could clearly make out a human figure standing in front of a console. Elias was calm, focused, his expression hard to read. But what she saw behind him made her blood run cold. The ship that Elias had been piloting, this vessel, was no ordinary human craft. It was something else entirely. It was alive. The ship's exterior was pulsing with energy, glowing in patterns that were far too advanced to be of human origin. Every surface seemed to shimmer with a strange, unnatural force, and tendrils of energy seemed to move across the hull, as though the ship itself was breathing. Westrook couldn't believe her eyes. She had never seen anything like it. "What is this?" she muttered under her breath. "What have you done, Elias?" The transmission cleared up, and Elias's voice came through. "Commander Westbrook, I've been waiting for you." Westbrook blinked, confused by the calmness in his tone. "Elias, what is going on? Your ship, it's alive." Elias smiled, though it was a shadow of the confident man Westbrook had known. "This ship is no ordinary vessel. It was created, designed, actually, by something far older than any of us. I found it, buried deep in the ruins of a lost civilization. At first, I thought it was just an advanced piece of technology, another relic of a forgotten war. But then, I discovered its true nature." Westbrook was speechless, struggling to process what Elias was saying. A lost civilization. An ancient ship. It sounded impossible. But what she had seen, what they all had seen, was undeniable. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a force of nature, a living entity that seemed to bend the laws of science and reality itself. "This ship," Elias continued, "it's connected to the very fabric of the galaxy. It feeds off energy, harnesses it, and can manipulate it. And unfortunately for the Zoreth, it's not just some artifact. It's a weapon capable of destroying entire fleets." Westbrook's mind reeled. "Are you telling me that your ship can destroy the Zoreth fleet without us lifting a finger?" Elias nodded, his eyes burning with an intensity that made Westbrook uneasy. "Yes, Commander. This ship is connected to the energy of the universe itself, and I've learned to control it. The Zoreth underestimated it, underestimated me, and now they'll pay the price." Westbrook stood there, struggling to find her voice. Everything she had known about warfare, about battle tactics, about the limits of human technology, was being turned upside down. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight to control the very forces of nature. "But Elias," Westbrook said, her voice trembling slightly, "this ship, this power, where did it come from? How do you even know how to control it?" Elias's expression darkened. "The ship's creators are long gone, but their legacy remains. It was designed to be the ultimate weapon, capable of protecting the galaxy from threats far beyond what we can imagine. But it's not just about the ship. It's about what it represents. The Zoreth never knew that humanity could tap into such power. They thought we were weak, fragile, but they're about to find out how wrong they were." Westbrook's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean by that?" Elias's voice turned cold. "It's not just the Zoreth I'm fighting. It's everything they stand for. It's the entire galaxy that has underestimated humanity. And now, the tables have turned. The power of this ship, the knowledge I've uncovered, it will change everything." As the transmission ended, the room fell into stunned silence. Westbrook was left in a daze, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what Elias had just said. The Zoreth Armada was not just up against a single human ship. It was up against a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and Elias was the key to wielding that power. The rest of the fleet waited anxiously for orders, but Westbrook remained still, processing the revelation. This wasn't just a battle. This wasn't just about defeating the Zoreth. This was about proving that humanity was not just a small, insignificant force in the galaxy. They were a threat, one that even the most advanced alien empires would have to reckon with. And with that thought, Westbrook realized something even more unsettling. If Elias was right, if this ship could truly harness the energy of the universe, then nothing, not even the Zoreth, could stop them. The awakening of power. The Zoreth Armada, once a formidable presence in the galaxy, was now in chaos. Their ships floated aimlessly, their once pristine hulls glowing with sparks, as if they had been caught in the throes of a cosmic storm. Their attempts to regroup had failed, and at the center of this turmoil stood one solitary ship, Elias's ship, a vessel unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Westbrook stared at the monitor in front of her, watching as Elias's ship, alive, pulsing, and glowing with a strange energy, maneuvered effortlessly through the debris of fallen Zoreth warships. It was as if the ship itself had taken on a life of its own, responding to Elias's commands with terrifying precision. The Zorath had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. "Elias, we're in position." Westbrook's voice crackled through the comms. "Do you need backup?" Elias's reply came swiftly, his voice calm but determined. "Negative, Commander. The ship's systems are fully activated, and the Zorath fleet is in disarray. I can handle this." Westbrook's gut twisted with unease. Everything about the situation felt wrong. The ship wasn't just a weapon, it was alive. Elias had awakened something ancient, something powerful. And now he was using that power to crush the Zorath with a fury that couldn't be stopped. As Elias's ship weaved between the disintegrating Zorath vessels, the alien fleet seemed to crumble. Their shields flickered and failed, their weapons misfired, and their communication systems were reduced to static. It was as if Elias wasn't just fighting a war. He was dismantling the very essence of the Zorath's technology. "Commander, look at this," one of the technicians in the command center said, pointing at the screen. Westbrook's eyes snapped to the display. The human fleet had begun to move in closer, but the situation was becoming more and more dangerous by the minute. Elias's ship, while unstoppable, had attracted the attention of the remaining Zorath capital ships. Their massive weapons were primed and aimed, their sights now locked onto the lone human vessel. The stakes had escalated. The Zorath had realized that this wasn't a battle for survival. It was a battle for dominance. "Elias," Westbrook called, her voice stern now. "We need to pull back. We don't know what this ship is capable of. It's not just about defeating the Zorath anymore. There's something more at play here, something we don't understand." For a moment, there was silence on the other end. Westbrook's heart raced as she waited for Elias's response. Was he ignoring her, or had something gone terribly wrong? Finally, Elias spoke. "I understand your concern, Commander, but there's no turning back now." Westbrook's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean? You can't just keep pushing forward like this." "I'm not pushing forward. The ship is, and I'm not controlling it anymore, Commander. It's controlling me." The words hit Westbrook like a ton of bricks. Elias had never been one to lose control in a fight. He was a seasoned veteran, a man who had led humanity through countless battles and threats. But now he was being driven by something beyond his comprehension. She could hear the tension in Elias's voice, something she had never heard before. A trace of fear. "The ship is alive, Commander. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it's making decisions for me. And right now, it's targeting the heart of the Zorath Empire." Westbrook's heart skipped a beat. The core of the Zorath Empire. That was far beyond what they could have ever imagined. If Elias's ship had truly become a living weapon, capable of taking down an entire empire, then the consequences for humanity and the galaxy would be immense. "Stop it, Elias. You have to regain control," Westbrook pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. But Elias's next words were cold and final. "I can't. The ship's awakening has begun. It's drawing on the power of something much greater than the Zorath. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, Commander. We're fighting for the future of the galaxy. And there's no going back." Westbrook stood there, staring at the screen, trying to comprehend what she had just heard. The implications of what Elias had said were staggering. Humanity was no longer fighting for its own existence. It was now playing a role in something much larger, something that could reshape the galaxy itself. As Elias's ship surged forward, the remaining Zorath ships prepared to unleash everything they had. Their weapons were primed, their shields locked into place, and they had one target: Elias. But what the Zorath didn't know was that they were facing something they couldn't possibly understand, something that had been dormant for eons, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And that moment was now. The energy in the Epsilon 9 system began to shift. The atmosphere seemed to crackle with an unnatural force. It wasn't just the power of Elias's ship. It was something else. The energy signature was growing, expanding, becoming more intense. The Zorath, with all their advanced technology and firepower, were no match for it. Westrook felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just a battle, it was a reckoning. And the galaxy was about to feel the consequences. The edge of destruction. The battlefield was no longer recognizable. What had once been the Epsilon 9 system, a key point of strategic importance for the Zorath Empire, had transformed into a chaotic, pulsing war zone. The human fleet stood in position, watching in disbelief as Elias's ship moved like a force of nature, its energy spreading across the remains of the Zorath fleet. Commander Westbrook watched with a sense of awe and dread as Elias's ship, now fully awakened, tore through the Zorath's defenses. The once impressive Armada was falling apart in front of her eyes. Alien ships that had once been mighty now struggled, unable to stand against the living weapon that Elias had unleashed. "Commander," one of the officers spoke, his voice trembling. "The Zorath are retreating. But it's not just their ships. It's their entire fleet. They're abandoning the system." Westrook's heart skipped a beat. The Zorath, known for their ruthlessness and technological superiority, were retreating, not because they couldn't fight, but because they had seen something they couldn't comprehend. They had seen Elias's ship, and they were afraid. But despite the victory, there was no sense of triumph in the air. The ship's energy continued to surge, growing more intense with every passing second. Westbrook felt an overwhelming unease as she stared at the monitor. The ship was no longer just a weapon. It had become a symbol of something much larger, and something much more dangerous. "Elias," Westbrook's voice crackled over the comms. "We need to stop this now. The Zorath are retreating. You've won. It's over." But the transmission was met with silence. "Damn it, Elias. Answer me." Westbrook's voice grew more urgent, but there was no response. The silence on the other end was suffocating, heavy with an eerie sense of dread. It had been hours since Elias had last spoken, since he had confessed that he no longer controlled the ship, since he had said that the ship was awakening to something far greater than anything they had ever encountered. Westrook's hand tightened around the armrest of her command chair. "What are you doing, Elias?" she whispered under her breath. Suddenly, the comms flickered to life, but it wasn't Elias's voice that greeted her. It was a deep, resonant hum, a sound that seemed to reverberate from within the ship itself. And then, through the static, came Elias's voice. "Commander, it's too late." Westrook's breath caught in her throat. There was no fear in Elias's voice, only an unsettling calm. The fear she had heard before was gone, replaced by something far more unsettling, a sense of acceptance. "What do you mean, too late?" she demanded, her voice laced with urgency. "What's happening?" "The ship. It's not just alive, Commander," Elias explained, his voice far away and distant. "It's connected to something older, something ancient. It has begun to draw on the energy of the universe itself. It's awakening to its true power." Westrook felt a chill run down her spine as the truth began to settle in. "True power," she repeated, disbelief and horror creeping into her voice. "It was built to harness the raw energy of the galaxy," Elias continued, his words growing more distant. "It's not just a weapon. It's a force of nature. And it's awakening now. The Zorath weren't the real target. They were just the beginning." Westrook's mind raced, trying to comprehend what Elias was saying. "What do you mean, they were just the beginning? What does the ship want?" The hum intensified, almost drowning out Elias's words. "The ship, it's not just a weapon for war. It's a tool for something far greater. The Zorath were just one of the obstacles, Commander. The real enemy is coming." Westrook's heart raced as the weight of Elias's words sank in. The Zorath, the galaxy's most fearsome empire, had been just a stepping stone for whatever was coming next. And the ship, Elias's ship, was the key to unleashing it. "What enemy?" she demanded, her voice desperate. "What are you talking about?" But there was no answer. The hum of the ship grew louder, as if drowning out her voice. Westrook's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the screens, watching as Elias's ship seemed to pulse with an energy she could barely comprehend. It wasn't just fighting, it was changing, evolving, becoming something more. "Commander," a voice cut through the chaos. It was one of the officers, eyes wide with alarm. "You need to see this." Westrook turned, her heart sinking into her stomach as she looked at the screen. The energy signature from Elias's ship was growing, but it wasn't just expanding within the Epsilon 9 system. It was spreading. It was reaching out, spanning across the galaxy in every direction. "What is that?" Westrook whispered. The officer's face was pale. "It's a wave, Commander. A wave of energy. And it's expanding at an alarming rate. It's heading toward the core of the galaxy." Westrook's mind raced. The ship had already broken the laws of science, destroyed the Zorith fleet, and disrupted the balance of power in the galaxy. But now it was doing something far worse. It was unleashing a force that could reshape the galaxy itself. And Elias was at the center of it. Her breath hitched as she realized the terrifying truth. Elias's ship had awakened not just a weapon, but a cosmic power that could obliterate everything in its path. The galaxy wasn't just facing a war, it was facing a reckoning. A reckoning that could leave nothing behind. The galaxy's last hope. The energy wave from Elias's ship continued to expand, rippling across the galaxy like a cosmic tsunami. Stars blinked out in its wake, their light extinguished as if the very life of the galaxy was being drained away. The human fleet stood on the edge of oblivion, helpless as they watched the wave grow larger, stretching further, devouring everything in its path. And at the center of it all was Elias, the human mechanic who had transformed an ancient ship into a galactic reckoning. Westrook's mind raced. What had they unleashed? What kind of power was this? She had seen war, death, destruction, but nothing in her long career had prepared her for the sight before her. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of annihilation, and there was nothing she or anyone else could do to stop it. "We need to find Elias," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to stop this before it's too late." But the officer beside her shook his head, eyes wide with fear. "It's too late, Commander. The ship's energy is expanding faster than we can track it. It's beyond anything we can control. The core of the galaxy is within its reach. If this continues, the entire galaxy could be consumed." Westrook felt a cold chill seep through her bones. Elias had warned them. He had tried to explain, but they hadn't understood. And now, as the ship's power continued to spread, she realized that the fate of everything, every star, every planet, every life, was hanging in the balance. "Is there anything left we can do?" Westrook demanded, her voice shaking with the weight of her responsibility. "Any way we can stop it." Another officer approached, her face pale with dread. "We've tried everything. We've sent distress signals, called in reinforcements, but the Zorith have already fled. The enemy isn't here anymore, Commander. The real threat is something we don't even understand." Westrook slammed her fist against the console, frustration bubbling over. "Then we need to understand it. We need to know what this ship is capable of." As if on cue, the main screen flickered to life. It was Elias's face, but it was no longer the calm, determined man she had known. His eyes were wild, his features drawn with exhaustion, as if he had been caught in a battle much larger than he could handle. But there was something else in his expression, something unsettling. "Commander," Elias's voice crackled through the comms. "You have to listen. The ship, it's not just a weapon. It's a bridge." Westrook's heart skipped a beat. "A bridge?" she repeated, her mind racing. "A bridge to what?" Elias's voice was strained, but there was an urgency to it that couldn't be ignored. "A bridge to an ancient power. The ship, it was built to open a path, a doorway to something older than the galaxy itself. And now that it's awakened, It's calling to whatever lies on the other side. Westrook's breath caught in her throat. Something. Older. She felt the weight of his words settle on her. If the ship was a bridge, what was on the other side? What was waiting to come through? Yes, Elias said, his voice tight with a mix of fear and understanding. Something that the Zorath feared, something that even they didn't know how to stop. But I've made a mistake, Commander. I thought I could control it, but I can't. The ship, it's not just part of us anymore. It's part of something far larger. And now, it's too late to turn back. Westrook's thoughts raced. She had to act, and fast. If Elias couldn't control the ship, then that meant the fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. She couldn't just sit by and watch as everything they had fought for was destroyed. What do we need to do? She asked, her voice low and steady. There was a long pause, and when Elias spoke again, his words were full of regret. There's a fail-safe, a way to shut the ship down, but it's locked deep within its core. And to reach it, you'll have to confront something that isn't human. The ship has evolved beyond anything we can understand, and it's holding us all hostage now. Westrook felt a cold sweat form on the back of her neck. Confront something not human. What had Elias gotten himself into? I'll do it, she said, the decision forming in her mind. She would do whatever it took to save the galaxy, even if it meant confronting the unimaginable. No, Elias replied quickly, his voice strained. You can't. You're not ready. The ship is alive, Commander. It will know you're coming. It will fight you every step of the way. Westrook's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't have a choice. There was no time left for second-guessing. The galaxy was on the verge of destruction, and Elias was trapped inside a weapon that had become something much more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Then what do we do? Westrook demanded, her eyes locking onto Elias's image. Elias's face twisted in pain, but there was a spark of hope in his eyes. I will help you. I may not be able to control the ship anymore, but I can still guide you to its core. It won't be easy. The ship is alive, and it will resist. But if you can reach the core, you can shut it down. Westrook nodded, determination settling in. We'll find a way. We'll save the galaxy. As the comms cut off, Westrook turned to the officers on her bridge, a plan already forming in her mind. Time was running out, and they had no choice but to face the unknown. Prepare a team, she said, her voice cold and steady. We're going to shut this thing down. But even as she spoke, she couldn't shake the feeling that the true battle was only just beginning. What they were about to face wasn't just a ship, it was a living nightmare. And the cost of failure could be the end of everything. The final confrontation. The crew gathered in the war room, the weight of the mission hanging heavily in the air. Westrook stood at the head of the table, her face drawn tight with resolve. They were about to venture into the heart of Elias's ship, a vessel that had become far more than a tool of war. Now it was something else, a living entity that could reshape the galaxy itself. We don't know what's waiting for us inside, Westrook said, her voice steady but laced with the urgency of the moment. But we need to move quickly. If we don't reach the core before the ship completes its transformation, the galaxy will be lost. The officers around her nodded, each one fully aware of the gravity of their mission. The final confrontation wasn't just about taking down the Zorath Empire or stopping an invading force. It was about preventing an unimaginable catastrophe. The ship is evolving at an exponential rate, said Lieutenant Marcus, his brow furrowed as he analyzed the latest data. We don't have much time. If we don't act now, this thing will be unstoppable. Westrook turned to her team. We need to get inside, access the core, and shut it down before it becomes a force that no one can control. Elias may be our only guide, but it's up to us to end this. As the team geared up for the mission, a sense of silent determination filled the room. They had faced war before, had fought for survival in impossible circumstances, but nothing had prepared them for this, a fight not just against an enemy, but against a living force that had no true form, no clear enemy to fight. The ship was now a reflection of something much darker, a cosmic weapon capable of tearing apart reality itself. Elias's voice crackled over the comms once more, as steady and calm as ever, despite the chaos that surrounded him. "Commander, listen carefully. The ship's core is protected by something you won't be able to anticipate. It's not just technology. It's something more. Be prepared to face the ship as you've never seen it before." "Understood," Westrook replied. "We'll be ready. Just guide us to it." The team made their way to the shuttle bay, where they would board a specially modified craft that could enter the heart of the ship. The air was thick with tension. No one spoke, knowing that words couldn't prepare them for what lay ahead. As they boarded the shuttle, the silence was almost deafening. Each team member strapped into their seat, preparing for the unknown. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and they began their descent into the heart of Elias's ship, a place where no human had ever gone before. Outside the window, the ship loomed like a dark, massive beast, its surface alive with an energy they couldn't even begin to comprehend. It pulsed and vibrated with an eerie hum, like the beat of a heart that wasn't just alive, but hungry. The shuttle passed through the outer layers of the ship, and the interior became even more alien. Twisting corridors, dark, shifting walls that seemed to pulse with an organic life of their own. The ship wasn't just a structure anymore. It was part of something greater, a force that had transcended any understanding of technology. "Stay sharp," Westrook ordered as they moved deeper into the ship. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." Suddenly, the ship's hum grew louder, vibrating beneath their feet, a warning. Elias had told them they would be met with resistance, but they hadn't prepared for this. The walls began to shift violently, and strange, tendril-like appendages erupted from the surfaces. They lashed out, blocking their path, seeming to sense their presence. "Get back! Go back!" shouted one of the officers, his face pale as the tendrils advanced. The ship itself was reacting to their presence, as though it was aware of their every move. "We need to push through," Westrook barked, pulling her weapon free. "Keep moving. We've got no choice now." With weapons drawn, the team moved forward, dodging the ship's attacks. The walls of the ship seemed to contract and expand, as if alive, trying to ensnare them in its grasp. Westrook fought back, the panic rising within her as they pressed on, determined to reach the core. Elias's voice came through the comms once more, but it sounded distorted, as though it was coming from deep within the ship itself. "Commander, you're getting close. But the ship, it's changing. It's no longer just a machine. It's becoming something else." Westrook's stomach churned at his words. What had they awakened? The ship was more than just a weapon. It was alive, and it was growing, evolving, becoming something more dangerous by the second. Then the walls before them parted, revealing a vast, cavernous space. In the center of the room, a glowing core pulsed with a sickly green energy. It was the heart of the ship, and the source of all the destruction that had been unleashed across the galaxy. The core was surrounded by massive tendrils, each one writhing like an enormous serpent. They lashed out as the team moved closer, but Westrook was focused on the prize, the core itself. "Get ready," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We shut this down, or everything ends here." As they approached the core, the ship's walls began to close in on them, and the tendrils became more aggressive, sensing their proximity to the heart. It was as if the ship itself was fighting to protect its essence, to ensure that its reign of terror would continue. Westrook and her team fought their way forward, firing their weapons and slicing through the ship's appendages. With each step, they could feel the power of the ship pulsing in the air, charging the very atmosphere with an electric tension. It was alive, breathing, hungry. And then, at the heart of it all, they reached the core. "Now," Westrook ordered, as the team set the charges. But before they could activate them, the ship gave one final violent pulse. knocking them all to the ground. The core's energy surged, and the ship seemed to scream, a deafening roar that shook the entire room. It was as if the ship was pleading for its life, desperate to continue its transformation into something beyond comprehension. Westbrook struggled to her feet, barely able to hear over the cacophony of noise. "We finish this now," she shouted, reaching for the controls. But then the core flickered one last time. And in that instant, everything changed. The ship collapsed into itself, as if folding in on its own power. The energy that had been building up suddenly discharged, sending out a shockwave that hit everything in its path. The tendrils fell limp, and the entire ship went silent. The ship's hum was gone. The pulse of life had stopped. And just like that, it was over. But as Westbrook looked around at her team, she knew the galaxy had been forever changed. The ship, now still and lifeless, held no answers. The cosmic power it had once wielded was now a mere whisper in the void. They had stopped the ship, but at what cost? What had they truly awakened, and what would happen now that it was silenced? As the team made their way out of the ship, Westbrook knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same again.